Hi, I'm Randy McLean, the president of Waypoint Analytics, and I'm here today with my friend Robert Mixon. Robert's from Level 5 Associates, and they specialize in one of the elements of the 2020, and that element is internal development so that the company can get to a higher level, developing the personnel within the company. Now, one of the things that's important for every executive to realize is that if you want the company to perform at a higher level, the company performance is tied directly to the capability of the people within the company, or the sum total of the people that you have working for you. So if you have as a goal getting your company to a new level of performance, a new level of profitability, a new level of sales, it's not going to be possible by having the same static level of the people inside the company. So one of the very most important things that you can do as a leader is put a permanent process in place to develop your internal company personnel so that they're better at what they do, having better leadership within your company so that they can help develop people that come behind them to higher levels, and to build a culture of perpetual improvement in personnel capability, and that will give the company a perpetual improvement in the company's capability. So Robert, thank you very much for coming in, and
sure.
You have a pretty interesting background. Can you tell me a little bit about your resume, or at least share your resume?
Well, I was privileged to serve in the United States Army for 33 years and retired as a Major General in 2007. Had the opportunity to command 7th Infantry Division in Fort Carson prior to my retirement. Since then, I've spent over 7 years in both the corporate for-profit manufacturing world as president of a company and as senior executive subsequently in a nonprofit which was providing life and job support to developmentally disabled Americans and veterans with traumatic brain injury and PTSD.
Wow. Now, one of the things that I find interesting about you and your resume is that you've had a pretty remarkable educational background, starting at...
Well, started at West Point with my good friend and wingman, John Batiste, now my business partner. We met on the plane at West Point July of 1970, and this month represents 44 years that we have known and served together in a variety of roles.
Yeah. Now, one of the things that I find remarkable, and in fact I personally admire, is I find the U.S. military to be one of the most remarkable organizations on earth. It's a self-learning, self-perpetuating, constantly improving organization. And although everybody knows of its mission of hurting people and breaking stuff, really the thing that makes it powerful over decades and centuries is it has a process for reinventing and improving itself on a continual basis. And so you come out of an environment where that happens. Can you tell me a little bit about how the military affects those changes, or make sure there's a perpetual process in place so that they're continually improving?
Well, one of the benchmarks of the United States military is the growth of leaders in a very comprehensive way. We have a structured, disciplined leader and personnel development program which generates continuous improvement. And we promote the best and brightest. We put them on the right seat in the right bus, as Jim Collins talks about. And we operate from a strategic planning framework where we have outcomes-based development. And that's really transferred for me into my corporate experience.
One of the things that I find remarkable is the whole concept of an after-action report. Why don't you share a little bit about what that's about?
Well, one of the things that we implemented in really the 1980s as we emerged out of the Vietnam era and into a more comprehensive, I think, leader-based framework was the after-action review to basically see ourselves. After each mission, particularly at the National Training Center in Fort Irwin, California, where we were essentially put into the laboratory of performance evaluation, we conducted after-action reviews where we said, okay, how did we do? And we asked everybody in the organization, what do you think? How do you think we did? And then we took all that feedback, we implemented changes based on that feedback so that the next mission that we conducted at a higher level because we'd learned from the prior one.
And that's pretty interesting. As part of the 2020 vision, companies should be doing continual reevaluation and seeing what the customer thinks of them so they know how they performed in their particular missions, and that's something that's intrinsic in the military.
Well, if you want to make more money as a company, you can turn the battleship and change your culture and organization, but you have to do that through an internal development program.
Now, one of the other elements that is part of the 2020 is having an internal capability to continually improve your people. And it may be, it's interesting that in the military you came out of a culture that has that, but a lot of companies, they've hired people, they were trained years ago to do what they do, they're still doing the same kind of thing in the same way. And it can be frustrating for the executives. The company isn't moving forward because the people aren't doing things in new ways or not inventing new and better ways of doing things as a part of the process. And yet you come from a culture where that's almost, it's intrinsic in the way that the organization works.
That's true, Randy, and I think that we now have capabilities to bring this process of continual improvement, of developing high-performing teams, to any company or organization where the leadership is willing to embark on that adventure. And it will translate, again, directly to the bottom line if you do it.
Yeah, and I've got to say that in my own personal life or my professional career, I've had the great privilege of having former military officers working in my organization. And I've got to say that with very few exceptions, the best people that generated the best improvements and gave me the best results and worked the hardest and were the most disciplined at what they did all came from military backgrounds. And so I'm always looking for military input because it brings so much into the business world that we haven't got in the business world intrinsically, the things that we may not be taught. And so one of the things I like about Level 5 is that that's the kind of thing that you and your partners and your consultants do for companies. Now, one of the benefits of that is change management. We've all been frustrated. There's things that we want to get done, and we can't really get the company to do things in a different way than they did in the past. And part of that is a function of this internal process of training people to have a mission and to understand that the mission may shift here, and so that they would shift in order to follow the mission. So in the military, that kind of thing happens. They talk about the plan is out the window, then the first bullet flies.
Right.
And
the plan survives the first shot.
Exactly. And so what would you bring from the military into a business that would help them with this whole change management function, getting people to move forward? Is leadership part of that?
Leadership's a fundamental part of it. What we would bring to a company or organization is the framework, the process to establish the mission, the intent, the shared values, or reconfirm them, to develop a pathway to the culture of excellence by growing Level 5 leaders through an internal development program that we would provide those tools to implement, and then we would provide the strategic planning, which is outcomes-based, so you'd see measurable progress, top line, bottom line.
Well, I guess that makes a lot of sense. In the military, there's from the get-go, there's a leadership structure. You're part of the structure, maybe at the bottom, and you work your way up through capability and your performance. And it tends to be more of a performance-based culture than we have on the business side.
And potential-based, too, I would say, Randy.
Yeah.
Performance and potential are two key parameters. And potential may be becoming, in fact, we think it is, the more powerful of the two going forward as the world changes so fast.
Yeah. So, and I think that's really, really important, and another important element of it. And one of the points I think I'd like to be able to communicate to the people that I work with is that you can learn a lot from other organizations about how to do things well. And the military is not usually an organization that we always think of, and yet they have some very, very powerful capabilities over on that side. And I know that I have gained a great deal in my enterprises across time by employing the principles that I've learned about from the military side in bringing the company forward. And I think that whole leadership structure and inspiring people to do things that need to be done is something that we often aren't really taught on the business side, and yet that's something that is as natural as the air where you come from.
Well, many corporate leaders that I've met have real trouble getting things done, and they want to know how to get things done. We can help enable the leadership of a company to develop the core of excellence in their leadership, in their processes, in their systems, to get things done.
Yeah, and in fact, that's what you do when you come in and do a professional job for people. But I would say also, just understanding those principles are available, reading on them and starting to adopt them as you learn them can help raise the collective IQ of your organization and raise the performance of the organization.
Our website, www.level5associates.com, has our Big Six leadership principles front and center. And we have an active discussion through our blog entries and other efforts and videos that are going to be placed there where you can go and see and read and hear how you implement.
Is that a free resource that people
Sure
go
is.
to? Oh,
Sure is, and we would invite anybody who wants to turn the battleship in their organization to go visit the site, contact us, ask questions.
so that's a great place to get started.
It is.
All right. Well, I want to thank you for spending time with us today, and I want to thank you, Robert, for spending some time with us and sharing your expertise and your knowledge with us.
We're proud to be part of the 2020 vision.
Absolutely. And so I want to thank you for spending time with us today, and looking forward to seeing you in future videos.